at Africa today, the statistics were read to you here. Do we have roads that can stand the scrutiny of quality? Is it possible for one to move from Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, to Dhaka in Senegal? Is it possible for one to have goods moving from Cape Town to Cairo in Egypt? Do we have such roads? Do we have railway systems that can convey goods from the port of Beira to Bangui in Central African Republic? Do we have them? Do we have systems that can help us in that regard? When we talk about the provision of infrastructure that deals with water, do we have infrastructure that can deal with that? Do we have infrastructure that can deal with solid and non-solid waste? Do we? The answer is we don't. And the little that we have, do we maintain them properly? And the little that we have, must we depend on others in order to maintain them? Or we can maintain them ourselves? These are the questions that I urge you to consider during this conference, because if we don't, the continent will be perennially dependent upon others. And when you are dependent upon others, then you cannot sleep easy. There is a proverb amongst the Mosi in Burkina Faso that when you sleep on a borrowed mat, you can never have sweet dreams. And I'm suggesting to you that we must now give away the mat that we borrowed so that we have our own mats, that we may have sweet dreams and sleep easy. Africa Agenda 2063 is a promise that we are going to have energy, that Iran produces more electricity than all African countries combined, excluding Egypt and South Africa. If we are in such a state, then we know that we are in trouble. And the only way to get ourselves out of trouble is to begin to innovate and invent. Whenever I go to Namibia, there is a big poster saying that Namibia can supply the whole of Africa with solar energy. Good, but have they? Beyond the declaration, we have solar, but can we harness solar power? And even when we harness solar power, tell me, you great engineers present here, which African country makes solar panels? Which one? None. Which African company is in the business of solar research and development? Which one? Which university in Africa is involved in research and development in solar? None. And if you are not involved, how then can we talk about sustainability? We are talking about wind as clean energy. Which university in Africa is involved in the area of research and development in wind energy? None. And I'm suggesting to you that it is your institution that must begin to work with industry and with the academy so that we can begin to get into the arena of research and development and therefore be the fuel that catalyzes sustainable development as contemplated under Africa Agenda 2063. Right now, because we are in the business of promising ourselves things, we have also promised ourselves that we have something called Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Good. On paper, you can't fault it. But tell me, engineers, how are we going to trade amongst ourselves if we don't have the right infrastructure? I remember talking to a friend of mine who is in the poultry business in Liberia. He put up a farm in Liberia, and he had his first major product to transport to Sierra Leone. He lost 90% of his eggs courtesy of the bad roads. So that when you want to trade, you must also have good infrastructure. Africa Continental Free Trade Area is only going to have meaning when we have supportive infrastructure. And that is why you have big business. It is a tall order. And today, therefore, during this conference and during the period that we are here, I believe that the clarion call should be, are we engaging sufficiently, innovatively, in a manner that is going to ensure that going forward we have good roads? We are asking ourselves, are we going to engage effectively to ensure that going forward we have good energy and in sufficient quantities? Are we going to ensure that we have sufficient know-how in order to harness the resources that we have? Are we going to ensure that there is sufficient connectivity within the universities and interaction between universities and industries so that we have a continent that is capable of carrying the load of development on the back of sustainable infrastructure? You know, there is a beautiful saying that if a cat wants to become a lion, the first thing is that it must lose its appetite for rats. I'm suggesting to us that if we are such a cat, the time is now to lose our appetite for rats. Because it is only then that we are going to engage in activities that will ensure that we can invent and innovate. Today, we know that Africa did not earn the dividends of the first industrial revolution as it ought to have, or even the second, or even the third. Today, we are in the fourth industrial revolution. When we are talking about artificial intelligence and we are talking about all those things, have we contemplated how that is going to impact on how we deal with infrastructure? Have we asked ourselves how we are going to ensure that what we have will develop the things that we ought to? Have we asked ourselves what we are going to do with the resources that we have so that we have value addition? If it is in the area of energy that I've already talked about, have we contemplated how that is going to be impacted upon through artificial intelligence? These are the things that I am urging all of us to wrap our minds around, because I have no doubt that we have the intellectual capacity to do it. The 300 of you who are assembled here and who are only a sprinkling of the many engineers in different facets of the engineering profession, I am urging all of us who are present here that going forward we must constantly remind ourselves that it is we who will bring change in the continent of Africa. To constantly remind ourselves that infrastructure is the mother's milk of sustainable development. To constantly remind ourselves that without sound infrastructure, Africa will always continue to punch below her weight. That without good infrastructure in all areas, Africa cannot attain the goal that she has set for herself under Agenda 2063, and it cannot earn the dividend that we contemplate under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That without infrastructure, even the soft social infrastructure such as health and education will not be served in the manner that they ought to be served. That without infrastructure, Africa cannot compete with the rest of the world. And without infrastructure, Africa will always be a begging continent. And without infrastructure, our continent cannot grow. It must pain us that the 1.4 billion of us, our GDP is still less than the GDP of Spain. It must pain all of us. It must pain all of us that we do not have paved roads that are good enough to sustain the business that we have. It must pain all of us. And you who engineers who are here, I'm today inviting you to take a solemn vow that going forward, you are going to use the platform that you have to make a contribution to make Africa realize our potential. It is not rocket science. It is something that can be done because it has been done by other civilizations, and I have no doubt in my mind that we can do it. So go out there into the world and ensure that you do something that will change African infrastructure through invention and innovation. If I spoke beyond this, I would be doing the wrong thing.
The stakes on this election are very high. As we speak, the African leaders retreated for a closed-door session to deliberate on critical issues affecting the continent, including the high-stakes election of the new African Union Commission chairperson and deputy chairperson. Remember, Kenya raised questions about the eligibility of Richard Randriamandrato, the Madagascar candidate, who is argued to be from the southern part of the continent, even though he is presenting his candidature on the eastern side. I have realized that I'm yet to see the Djibouti and Richard Randriamandrato in the auditorium. Since they arrived in Addis Ababa, they've gone missing, and it's only the Kenyan candidate, Honorable RAILA Odinga, who has been visible and very conspicuous in the Ethiopia capital. African leaders are looking into this. So in this podcast, of course, the statement from PLO Lumumba is opening up on some of the intrigues on the things that African presidents needs to consider as they cast that decisive vote either for RAILA Odinga, Djibouti's candidate Mohamed Ali Yusuf, or Richard Randriamandrato. Now, before that retreat, there are some updates that I want us to get here. Ghana's candidate Ama Tium Amoa clinched Health and Humanitarian Affairs and Social Development Commission seat with an overwhelming 45 out of 49 votes, a testament to Ghana's intact diplomacy and growing influence. I am paying attention because of what RAILA's win will really mean for the continent. We are going to look at the numbers. South Africa and Ghana are emerging as the continent's heavyweights. South Africa got a seat by 41 out of 49. Today, Ghana has also clinched 45 out of 49. Even if RAILA is going to win in the first round or in the second round, we are so much to see on what have played. Looking at the number, looking at the struggle, looking at the margin, it is also going to see whether Kenya is really a diplomatic heavyweight in the continent. And so President Ruto will have to confirm, of course, confirm to the country about the efforts, about the trips that he's been making in different countries before that. Ghana's President John Mahama, the new elected president of Ghana, returns to the AU stage a decade later, now leading the West African nation at the forefront of African reparations. Barbados Prime Minister announces that the first in-person CARICOM African Union Summit will be held in Addis Ababa this September. I wanted to look at there's some news here about election that has been done, and I really want to get it here. Yes. Angolan President João Lourenço takes over the AU's rotational presidency for 1 year a largely ceremonial role where leaders often tread carefully to avoid stirring emotions, tensions with member states. And due to that, AU proceedings switched from English, French, Arabic, and now transitioning to Portuguese as Angola, a Lusophone country, takes center stage. So the AU chairperson, now there is AUC, there is the Commission, then there is the African Union. The African Union chairperson, it's a rotation now coming from Mauritania, it's now going to a Lusophone. If RAILA gets it, then RAILA comes from Anglophone, the English-speaking nation. Then the other side is Francophone. So those are the French-speaking nation. So we are going to look at this dynamics on what it is. Country Kenya is investing a lot of emotions. I've seen a video of a TV, some screen erected in Kondele, of course, as people wait, and I think people are looking for celebrations. Raila Odinga's supporters have been have been crying for nearly all the 5 elections that Raila have been there. And those are some of the convincing reasons why some of us want Raila to win. And there is a compelling reason into factors that are going to be into consideration when the African leaders retreat for the summit. But then the speech by Lumumba is a very powerful speech on who the continent shall consider for the position. But again, I need to repeat here, this job is not purely a technical job as analysts say. If you look at the way lobbying is being done on regional blocs and networks, it is very interesting. I've seen South African president who was rumored not to be going there, just arrived in Addis Ababa around 11 a.m. Kenyan time, today the 15th. But Museveni is not in Addis Ababa. The old man is running some rallies in Uganda. I don't know why. But of course, he has to confirm that he might have sent his representative. The voting by ballot, of course, the voting was supposed to start between noon to 2 p.m. Kenyan time. But due to African time, we are foreseeing the results will be out at about 5 p.m. Kenyan time. Immediately they come out of the chambers, the closed door chambers, they proceed to it. Let's just brush through the process. Nomination process, AU member state nominates candidates for AU positions based on regions, and that's why it was Eastern side, and Raila got it. Campaigning and lobbying, candidates campaign and lobby AU member states for votes, with the regional blocks often playing a significant role in negotiations. Voting process, voting is conducted by secret ballot during an AU summit, with each member state having one vote. To win, a candidate must secure 2/3 majority, that is 33 as things stand by now. It is Kenya that paid the subscription money for Sao Tome and Principe, the country that we were mentioning on the Equatorial Guinea island. Sao Tome and Principe, they were not members of AU simply because of subscription. So it has been confirmed by Musalia Mudavadi, it is Kenya that paid their subscription fee. I think President Ruto have gone to its length and breadth to ensure that Raila gets it. It is in his interest that Raila Odinga makes an exit from the Kenyan political space. There is this narrative of Raila is going to advance Kenyan agenda there. Of course, there are so many sweet diplomatic words being used, but in real sense, it is the local politics at play, nothing more. Kenya is supporting Raila Odinga, especially for that. Now, this is the last video that I've done. Then the next video I'll come back to do, it will be after either Raila Odinga has lost or Raila Odinga has won. So what is going to happen? I foresee Raila Odinga getting a resounding win in the second round of voting. The first round we might not be able, because I'm not so sure about SADC. But if SADC throws their full weight behind Raila Odinga, then Raila is going to win it in the first round. But if SADC is not going to throw their weight behind Raila, then Raila will have to go to the second round and get a resounding win. Either way, Pima suti. Pima suti. I'm confident. Odinga is getting it. I'm confident. Ile sherehe naona watu wanapiga huku, there is something that Ruto has done. Ruto ni mwizi wa kura bana. Hiyo haizi mshida. Thank you.
Ni madu wala wakura sahihi.